You can hear the best medicine on 91.5 WDBK. Check www.drcomedian.com for current listings. And find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Danielle Ryer Comedian.
So tell me a little bit about your inspiration behind Cheaters and a little bit about yourself too.
Well, I don't want to disappoint anyone about the inspiration because the inspiration was not mine. I was an after the fact. Someone else came up with the recipe, and I got to cook it, so to speak. The show was when I started, Cheaters was in its second season, and they had just started their third season, and there was a situation that came up, and where they were looking for a new host, and I ended up auditioning for it and booked it, and had no idea what I was getting myself into.
What were you actually getting yourself into?
I still don't know. I still don't know what happened. It was 10 years. It went by just like that.
Wow.
Well, it was an interesting season, let's say, because really this was kind of before everyone, I mean, everyone had cell phones, but this was really before people had the access and the platform that they do now through social media.
Oh yeah, social media has made it a lot easier to cheat now, hasn't it?
So, well, it's also made it much easier to get caught. I mean, it's just people now have a platform that they didn't have when I started doing the show. So really, it was before its time. Now, you can't throw a stick without hitting, 4 or 5 people's, private eye, sneak up, who's being surreptitious, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, someone's catching someone doing something, whether it's the guy who's misbehaving at Burger King because he wanted more fries, or, just whatever it is. So we live in a different, I think there's a different climate that's going on right now, but the show was particularly, it was before its time. Now it's whatever. Yeah, they're cheating. Yeah, go watch it on Facebook Live. Big deal.
Yeah, you watch the whole
Big woo. Yeah, you caught me. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is was the most intense episode or experience that you've had? Like, oh my God, I think this guy's gonna kill me. Have you ever had any of that?
I will tell you, and I've said this before. The situation that I think had the most impact on me was our client was a woman, and obviously we go through the whole thing, and then we catch the guy because we always do. But when we were driving away in the van, and I just asked her if she was okay, if she was hurt, if any. And she said, well, the only thing that hurts is where he, was hitting me with his belt last night. And she pulls up her shirt and shows me these like bruises on her ribs where, I don't know if it was like his buckle, and I just felt so terrible because I wanted to say, ma'am, what difference does it make if he's not being faithful? You know what kind of a person he is. Let's get you in a better place. And I think what was revealing was that so many people are in a situation that they feel trapped in, that they don't know how to get out of. Yeah. So that was not to bring the, hey, fun interview down.
Oh, no.
But that, I will have to say, in all the years that I did it, that one is one of the ones that stands out the most to me.
Yeah. I bet you were like, I wish I could just take this woman out to, tea and just like get her all the therapy or anything that she needs and just like you just want to be the, how do you just not want to be the fixer on that show, you know?
Well, that's what I think that's what my role was, kind of. Is just
Yeah.
to, but that you can't do everything. And one thing that I will say, I mean, the show was a lot of fun and games, but there were times when it was very serious. And one thing that I will say for the show is, in situations like that, they did step up and offer counseling services for
Mm.
for some of the people who were the participants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I think it's just, it must be almost like it gaslights people out of their perception of reality, like when they're cheated on. I'm sure it's like, imagine you think this person wants to be with you for the rest of their lives, and then they try to make that commitment to somebody else, or somebody else temporarily. Like, why do it?
if you had the answer to that question, you you'd be very wealthy. I think there's so many things that can attribute and contribute to that, which you don't know the background, you don't know the upbringing, you don't know the voids, you don't know might be in someone's life, you don't know the validation that they feel they need, you don't know who needs. You don't know their upbringing. If there was one or two parents absent, you don't. There's so many pieces of that puzzle that that are kind of missing, and usually it comes down to someone's trying to fill a void, and if it's not being filled, or if their needs or expectations are not being met by someone else, rather than have an adult conversation about, is this working and how can we continue to build this together, which is kind of what every relationship should be.
I agree.
To, all right, this isn't working, let's move on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think society feeds that, because you look at, we make it very easy for someone to just like pack up camp and move on, and sure enough, then the same situation happens with the next relationship.
Yeah. You think, are there any people who you think like might cheat like once and not actually be a cheater?
Okay, well, and that's an interesting question, and I will say this, because in the past people have said, is it once a cheater, always a cheater?
Mm-hmm.
And I just went, you know what? I sure hope not. I think as humans, we have the ability to grow and learn and change, because if not, we'd all be lost. I
Right.
mean, like, think about your worst, and I'm not going to ask you to say it, but think about the worst decision you've made as a human.
There are a lot of those.
Now, if I said, well, guess what? That's who you are for the rest of your life.
Oh
How,
my gosh, I would die.
so
I think everyone around me would die too.
I think we all can agree, I think, myself included. So, you know, I would hope that that's not the case, because, if it is, then, we're headed down a dark road.
Oh yeah. Yikes. Oh my God. I cannot imagine what it'd be like to be cheated on. I feel like people who I feel like this whole idea of the next best thing is basically like what fuels this whole cheating epidemic. Is people are just like, oh well, my partner, I'm gonna stay with my partner till something else comes around. But like, that's not how relationships work. Like, if there's going to be something wrong in every relationship you have, the point of being loyal is about, just sticking with a person and trying to work things out. And if you can't, you say goodbye. I don't get it.
Well, I that could be part of the way society is now, which seems to be, hey, as long as things are fine and happy, we'll stay together. And when things, if one of us gets unhappy, then, okay, this isn't working, rather than what's making it not work. And then so if we can get the rest of the world to look inside, because we got it covered right here.
Yeah, I mean,
We just need everyone else to agree.
yeah, I feel like there should be more. I feel like there should be support for people who are thinking about cheating, because I would never condone cheating, but it's often about a need being unmet. But you shouldn't make anybody else suffer for that. You know what I mean?
Now here's something interesting though. Do you know anyone who would join a support group for potential cheaters?
Probably would raise a red flag in their partner's mind,
I was going to say, it'd be like, yeah.
Uh-oh, like, what do they do? What do they do?
And everyone's outside in the parking lot with their camera phone, with the cameras on their phone.
And then
recording
Joey Greco comes in
4K. In 4K. This is a preemptive bust.
Yeah, but
that would be interesting.
Yeah, but what if it was more about, my needs are not being met in a relationship, but I'm not cheating. I just need help getting my needs met. I think there's nothing wrong with admitting your needs are not being met.
And who is the best person to have that conversation with?
Like maybe a therapist.
Or the person that you're in the relationship with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a good place to start, right? Definitely.
Well, what can you say about some things you've seen in common with the cheaters? What behavior and like red flags you've seen, and personality traits that you've seen? Like, is it more domestic abusers, or people who are just bored, antisocial personality? Like what have you seen?
All of the above. Yeah, I don't know if there's one thing that you can, put your finger on to say that this is the common thread. I know of situations where, a woman thought she was happily married, to find out that the husband had a second family.
Wow. How did that happen?
So, I do not know. I can't imagine. However, she thought the relationship was fabulous. So, is it always something that you can put your finger on? Not always. 9 times out of 10, though, would you agree that if someone's in a relationship and they feel a shift, they feel a change, and something's going on, they can't put their finger on it, their instinct kind of kicks in and goes, you know what, this wasn't the way it used to be. Then, 9 times out of 10, I think I'm not saying that there's infidelity going on, but there's a shift somewhere in the relationship.
Yeah. That makes sense. Like, it's weird. Sometimes, you just wake up in the middle of the night, something is wrong. And then you're like, what could possibly be wrong? And then you think about the reasons, and then often your gut is telling you something.
And then once you pull the thread, then all of a sudden you start going, oh, I remember that. And all of a sudden it all starts to fit into place. The pieces of the puzzle fall into place.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. Well, have you? Do you think that cheaters are generally? Do you think that they're unhappy people, or unhappy with the relationship, or both? Like, I mean, like, it's just. What do you think is going on with some of them?
I can't answer that question for them. I'm certain that some of them don't think they're unhappy people. Some of them feel like they're on top of the world because they think they're untouchable until
they got all the power and control.
Up until, and then it all changes. So
Yeah.
it's that's a roll of the dice. And now that everyone's got, you know, now that everyone's got a smartphone, third graders
Yeah, third graders catching their parents cheating.
catching the,
That would be bad.
nowhere to turn. Yeah, watch out
Yeah,
anytime you walk
yeah,
out the door. So
yeah.
anyway,
So, yeah, I was wondering, how do you think somebody can get help when there's children involved? Like, what do you tell the children? Like, mommy is out with that their second daddy, not really, but yikes.
I think the danger in those situations would be one of the participants or one of the parents using the children as a weapon against the other one. You know, especially when they're too young to understand. And I think probably the best idea would be to deal with the adults, let the adults deal with the adults, and to allow the children, without coloring or tainting the water for the other parent, because there's, and everyone says, "Oh, kids are resilient; they'll bounce back." Well, you know what? They still have. That's the only parent they've ever known.
This is true. This is
They see
true.
mom and dad, and so I think that's a dangerous road.
Definitely. So do you think that there has been enough research done on, how to help people and like what can people do to get support outside of like their therapist or whatever? Like what have you advised people to do after the fact? Because it's just they might have like this huge existential crisis. Like what now? Maybe I'm over it, but what now?
That you can recommend and say anything you want to someone in that situation until they're the one that's looking for help. It doesn't make a difference. That's like you look at any abusive situation, whether it's substance abuse or otherwise. If someone doesn't think they have a problem, how easy is it going to be to convince someone they have a problem?
This is
That's
true.
a tough job.
This is true. So I've seen episodes of where you nearly got thrown off a balcony or something like that. Did you ever feel like in a serious danger, like anything like that, and like where you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna die?
There were times there were situations that were a little dicier than others, and I just remember. And there's one particular one I remember. This guy was just angry and huge, and he got in his car because he was going to make his getaway. And of course, we were around his car, and then the girl ran, so she's over there. He's in the car, so I'm there with a couple of camera guys, and I don't know if there was a security guy there or not because they told me this early on. They said, "We love you, but the security guys are there to protect the equipment. Number one, first priority is to protect the equipment." And then you're number two. And I went, okay, great. It's good to know.
Oh,
So
your
I
second
don't know
priority.
I don't know how many security guys are there, but he's in his car, and I have to go up to his car, and I'm like, I knock on his window, and I go, "Do you not want to come out and talk to us? Come on, please, come out and talk to us." I mean, she's and this guy. I mean, when I say I don't remember how large he was. I just know he was substantially larger than anyone that was on our crew at all, but, and I'm not that big. I'm 5'9", 75. It's not like I'm going to win any heavyweight contests. And I'm knocking on the window. I go, don't you want to come out and talk? I mean, she's a, frail, small woman. What's she going to do? You know what I mean? You can't be afraid of her. Just come out and talk to us and just, tell her what's going on. And in the meantime, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, please don't get out of the car. Please don't. But I have to, for the camera, I have to be there like knocking on the window. Come on, man. Now I'm trying to goad him to get out. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, oh, Lord Jesus, please don't get out. Because
don't have a gun. Please don't have a gun.
He was so mad. And luckily he didn't, because either just for whatever reason, all the security guys were, because the girls then were fighting each other or whatever it was. They were all dealing with them. And he took off in the car. I went, oh, thank God. But then he called later as we were, driving away, and he said, you want to come meet? I'll meet you now. Meet me in the parking lot.
Catch me outside. How about that?
How about that?
Big tough guy.
Didn't fall for that one.
Oh, yikes.
So anyway, but there were times that it did happen. But,
yeah.
I'm real tough though with 30 people behind me.
Yeah, but at least you do got backup. But hopefully he does not have an AK-47.
So we'll be sure the equipment doesn't get damaged.
Yeah. The equipment. Oh no, the equipment.
Yeah, save that. Guys are diving to catch cameras from hitting the ground.
And then you're second. No, you have to be like on the ground with your arms outstretched, as the trampoline for the equipment. If the equipment dares fall off,
exactly. The buffer, on the buffer.
Yeah, exactly.
But there was some fun. There was some fun there. It wasn't all, danger. I mean, because we knew that they were situations, but at the same time, we knew it's late night entertainment.
Yeah.
So if it didn't have some element of entertainment in it, people wouldn't watch.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what do you think is the most fun part of your job, even though it's a little bit dicey sometimes?
For me, the fun part was, and I hope I did it well enough, but I think what was the most enjoyable was when you had the ability to get people to see the ridiculousness of the situation or how they were behaving.
Yeah.
But to do it politely, because and from what I remember, regardless of their age, every woman was a young lady and every man was a gentleman. No matter what they were doing, it was either a gentleman or a young lady. That's it. There was no, there were no judgments other than that. But often, and you can tell this when someone says something that's unbelievable, say in your just everyday life, say someone says something that's unbelievable. And it's ridiculous and it's unbelievable, but to reiterate how ridiculous it is, you repeat back to them what it was that they just said. And as they're hearing it, it becomes more and more ridiculous. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like, but he loved me, but he loved me, but he loved me. But he didn't actually love me.
When someone has an excuse of, well, what did you do? This wasn't me. I was doing this and this. And you went, okay, so this wasn't you, and you were and you repeat their ridiculous
but it's not my wallet.
story.
It's not my wallet.
I know, it's not my car. That's not my license plate.
But that's not me. That's my face, but it's not me. Somebody must have glued that on my face, that mask on that guy's face that looks exactly like me.
So it almost became, that became a little fun because I'm sarcastic to begin with.
Oh
But
yeah, me too.
when you start down that path of, all right, so let me get this straight, and then it just brings a little more impact to the outlandishness of their excuses. And then of course you have the other person is there too, and it's like guerrilla therapy. Call it
And watching a train wreck.
hostile improv.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Hostile improv. And it's like sometimes I'm sure sometimes you just got to go off set for a minute and just crack up. Like you can't.
There was a time, and I will tell you this that I remembered, because we knew it was cheesy. It had cheesy elements to it, and my job was to, hey, if I had to lay it on thick, you lay it on thick. Well, a girl had gotten into a scuffle, and we're driving back in the van, and she had scraped her knee.
Oh.
And it was bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lulls, because there are times when it's not that it's always comfortable conversation. Sometimes it's awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at her knee, and I just went, well, just you can take some comfort in knowing that as the wounds of your body heal, so will the wounds of your heart.
Oh, that is so profound.
But here's the thing. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to get it out, because I went, oh, this is so corny. And biting my tongue. And it was dead silence. It was dead silence. And she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and I'm going, all right, I got it out. I think I'm going to be okay. And then one of the camera guys couldn't hold it. And you just heard him kind of snort. And once he snorted, everyone started laughing, even the girl. And I remember looking at her, and they went, "Whoa!" And he goes, "Man, I don't know if we got that clean. I think someone said, whatever." And I said, "I'm so sorry. I know that was pretty corny, wasn't it?" She goes, "Yeah, it really was corny." I went, we may have to say that again just for camera, just to make sure we get it. She goes, "Okay, no problem."
Oh my God.
So
You need a Cheaters Uncut, and you need to have the outtakes. Send them all to me.
I'll tell you what you can look up, though, is look up on probably social media like Twitter, probably, because I know that's where the campaign was. Look up Netflix Cheaters, and it's Cheaters with a Z at the end. So Netflix Cheaters, because I did a campaign with Netflix a couple of years ago, and it was all about people watching series and watching shows ahead of their partner. Like, hey, let's watch this together. We're going to watch the series together.
You're cheating on me with the series, man.
Well, no, but then, so we break in and catch people watching, like Stranger Things. What episode are you on? Episode 5? It's like I don't even know you anymore. They kind of wanted that. I mean, that's how ridiculous.
Somebody else, man?
But these people are in bed with someone else, so they could care less about them being in bed with someone else. And there was another one for I think New Zealand or Australia, where they did a version where the guy was at the strip club, and they have him in the video at the club, and the girl could care less about that. But what's he watching? He's watching our show without me. And that's where everyone was getting all worked up. Yeah, so it was
relationship over. No, I don't care if you did cheat. I don't care if we have a house together, kids together. You watch Stranger Things before me. We are over.
Yes, exactly.
This is done. This is done.
So look that up. It was a fun bit.
Excellent.
It was a fun bit to do.
Excellent. So, do you got any more projects coming up? We're nearing the end of the interview, but I wanted to know.
Not right now. Still just auditioning. And someone messaged me not too long ago. She goes, "Oh, I don't remember what it was, but she goes, I can't wait for your next television show." And I just wanted to message her back and go, "Hey, yeah, me too." we're both looking forward to that. So
Yeah.
so still auditioning. I work in real estate, so I try and keep active.
Excellent.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I got maybe like one or two more questions for you. So
Sure.
one is how do you like cope with all this, like, oh, it's like sometimes I watch the episodes and get really sad and like it's just like I like how do you cope with that? You know what I mean?
Personally, like for myself, or how do I cope
for
with
yourself.
dealing
Like,
with them, or
how do you cope personally? Like, what's your self-care, as it were?
I think it's, for me, we have choices to make.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the situations we find ourselves in are as a result of the choices that we make. And, for me, it's just make better choices for yourself and continue to do that. Or continue to attempt to do that, because when you haven't made the best choice, you may not know it then, but let me take that back a second. There are times when you may not be aware at that moment, but usually when someone is about to do something that they know before they, should I do this or not do it, they know I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna. And it may feel good for a second, like they're getting away with something. But in the back of your mind,
Yeah, you know. One last question. So show business. How do you advise people to get into that and like stay into that? And what, like, how did you get into it, and how can you advise others to get into it?
I got into it because I had the fortune of booking all right, I mean, it's out there, but many moons ago, I worked on ESPN as a co-host for a fitness show, and was so bad that I went, when you see yourself on camera for the first time, really, and you hear yourself and see yourself, and you think, oh, good Lord, is that what I look like and sound like? Because I just didn't like being on camera. It's one thing when, at the time, I would do workshops and presentations for conferences and conventions that are all fitness and athletically oriented. So when you did a conference, especially if there's movement involved or choreography, you may have been in a room of, with 300 to 500 people. And there's a lot of energy that goes back and forth. If you're on stage, you're doing something that, and it's very dynamic. Right? The synergy that's there in the room, it just is, really, it's a blast, and you feed off that. Now, in a studio where there's no feedback, and it's just you on a sound stage acting like you're really excited about something, and there's nothing else going on. To me, that wasn't my thing. I'm understated. I don't need, I wasn't like a woo. Anyway, and seeing that, it just looked like I was disinterested. And I went, okay, That was terrible. I need to get better at that. So I took a commercial class, and that was in the early 90s. And from that time until, I mean, for the next, 20 years, I was in a class. I was in some type of acting class.
Mm.
But that's how it started, because I was so bad. So
You're so bad, and then you became good.
I wouldn't advise getting into it that way. But so that's what happened. That was my experience. And then little by little, we did the show. That led to other things. And it just continued to kind of grow from there. Now, as far as how someone would get into the best way for someone to get into the entertainment, what particular role are we talking about?
Like, I don't know, like
Someone just was
comedies, like presentations, commercials, TV shows, movies.
So, as talent.
Yes, I guess.
Okay. What I would say is get out there and look at improv classes, see what improv classes are available, and it's one of the things where you can't do it and be quiet and to yourself. You have to get used to being on stage, and almost you have to. It was the Teddy Roosevelt, his big speech, where it's like, it's not the critics that count. It's the people who were in there in the ring, their blood, their sweat, regardless of how many times you fail. Because at the end, those are the people. It's not if you fail or if you're victorious. It's that you were in there doing it.
Yeah.
And it's facing that and expect that you're going to fail, but that is going to help your growth as you continue to move in the direction that you want to go. So, so that I would say for anyone, but I would say get comfortable with yourself on camera. Get into classes. There are a lot of, I don't know. You're on the East Coast, correct?
Yes, I'm in New Jersey.
So I'm certain if you're in Jersey, there are going to be there are plenty of I know in Dallas there are comedy, not the improv, but they're just places that specialize in comedy, a lot of sketch places, and that you can go, and they usually have a curriculum that someone could take a part of. And it may be one or a couple of classes, but once you start doing that and you start getting comfortable with yourself and know who you are, once you know who you are, then you'll know where your strengths are, and then you'll know how to direct those energies, and then you'll also know where your weaknesses are, and you can start to develop those stronger as well. So.
Yeah. Well, this was a really great interview, and I had a really great time talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Any last words you'd like to share?
No, just thanks for reaching out, and continued success for your show. And
all right.
let me know if you have anything coming up in the future or any other things that I don't know why I'm saying that, but because it's not like I'm on the stay in touch.
All right, I will.
Just let me know how things
much.
go, and as things come up, if there's anything that's exciting, please don't hesitate to reach back out.
All right. Thank you, Joey. Bye.
You got it. Okay. Have a good day.